One of the tires was missing, and one corner of the construct was instead supported by chains hanging from the ceiling. The places that still had coverings were sleek-looking, with not a single sharp angle in sight. The same, however, could not be said about the uncovered parts. A large metal frame hung in her eye height. On top of it was a chaotic entanglement of wires, pipes, and whatnot, connected to a singular large block as tall as her. Aragami's father was reaching into the tangle behind the large piece, mumbling to himself. She snooped around looking for some sign of Magitech lying around before giving up. They either didn't have it here, didn't use it, or their Magitech was so different she just didn't recognize it. The insides of the building were full of metal shelves filled with metal and other parts and wooden blocks, strange tools hanging off the walls and framed images. Some of the images were of Aragami's kind, while others were of other constructs and what she could only describe as technical drawings. At one point, the hound she saw before walked into the building with a small green ball in its snout and started to annoy the man. It was rewarded with a pat on the head, and the ball thrown out of the building. It seemed happy and chased after the ball, catching it after it bounced off the ground and brought it back to the man. She watched for a minute before noticing Aragami exiting the front door. He wore pants similar to his father and a brown tunic with tall brown boots. He walked over to his father's building and to the wall of tools, pocketing several of them before moving over to the shelves. "That was very childish of you," the father spoke, not looking up from his work. "I know," Aragami sighed, reaching into one of the many boxes. "But he can be so annoying, I just snapped and didn't think," Aragami answered, pulling a heavy-looking metal mallet from a box and setting it on the ground next to him. "Don't let your emotions rule over you so easily." His father looked up and smiled. It was a sad smile. "You could come to regret it." Aragami nodded thoughtfully and pulled another tool out of the box. "I'll be better," he said and smiled back. "I'll take the Chevy and pick up a few stronger pulls on the way there." "Should I make it triple wired?" "Sure." His father nodded and returned to his work. "Reinforce a couple of them as well. I don't want to keep going back there." "Sure thing," Aragami waved as he walked off. "I'll check out the surroundings as well." "Be back by dinner." "See you later," his father answered, one hand waving back over the construct. Virya followed after him with a weird feeling. What was that? Something definitely happened before to warrant this response, but with her thoughts racing, she numbly followed after Aragami to another construct. He just threw the mallet into a large tub in the back and pulled a lever on the side, opening large doors inside. She quickly climbed inside and skittered to the side, giving him room to do whatever he was about to do. There was a lot of room inside, but she didn't pay much attention. After all, being his and his father's size needed more space than she did. Instead, her attention was focused on the inside. Soft gray chairs emerged from the dirty floor and seemingly melted onto the metal wall behind. On the other side, there was a bulky wall of black material similar to his axe handle with a large wheel and several levers on one side. In between the seats protruded another stick, this one from the ground. It was made of metal and had a small piece of wood on top of it with a couple of symbols. Aragami got in right after her, settling himself on the seat behind the wheel. His legs reached to the empty space under the wheel, and his right arm reached for the stick in the middle, shaking it from side to side a couple of times. After setting in, he reached behind the wheel and pulled out a narrow key from out of sight and slotted it into a slit just above his knees. "Okay, come on, girl. We're going for a ride," he muttered before turning the key away from him. She was startled by the noise coming from in front of them, but Aragami seemed undisturbed. After a couple of seconds, Aragami let go of the key and the sound steadied out, now just a slight hum. "Good girl." Aragami grinned and patted the wheel. "Let's go. We have work to do." Reaching for the stick in the middle, he moved it toward him and forward and waited. The noise in front got stronger and the construct started to move on its own. With Aragami whistling an unknown melody and Virya simultaneously trying not to panic or throw up, the Chevy moved past the now open gate and into the green fields.